Minister Narendra Modi. Live visuals coming in from Bali on the second day of the G20 summit. India is now at the helm of G20. This is the two-day global summit, the G20 summit, which began yesterday. And today, Prime Minister Modi has spoken as it enters the second day. The conference has just concluded. Let me cut across to Geeta Mohan, joining us live from Bali. Geeta, a quick word from you. Prime Minister Modi has just spoken on stage. He receives huge applause from all the G20 nations, 8 countries who are present. We heard many bilateral talks have happened between several leaders. As Prime Minister has spoken just a few minutes ago, would you take us through exactly the points he's made?
Well, a few very important things that have really happened in the closing ceremony is the handing over of G20 presidency. The visuals that you can see is the handing over ceremony where President Joko Widodo handed over the G20 presidency to India, to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as India is now poised to take over as the president of the G20 from December 1st onwards. And the agenda quite clearly set for the Indian side when it comes to the conduct and conducting of the G20 in terms of meetings, in terms of forward movement, and in terms of what to achieve. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated the idea and his mission of life, which is lifestyle for environment. Economic growth cannot move forward unless and until the nations, G20 nations, factor in environment and climate change. And that's what's really happening over here. He's looking at social equity, equality, and environment when it comes to any decisions and discussions on economic growth. And that certainly is what he emphasized on. A very important aspect that is a part of the G20 today and is historic is what Prime Minister Modi had said at the SCO summit. He spoke about how this is not an era of war. Now, delegations, the Indian delegation and many other countries supporting the Indian delegation wanted this entire phrase included in the outcome document. And if you see the G20 outcome document, Nabila, it is very clearly spelled out. The inclusion of this in itself is historic. Speaking of dialogue, of peace, there can be no certainty and stability, predictability or reliability unless and until there is peace. And therefore, the push for dialogue, while countries are taking sides and a lot of them asking questions on the Russia-Ukraine war and which country is taking whose side, India stands in the middle, saying that we need to conduct ourselves through dialogue, through negotiations, and that's the message that has been included in the outcome document.
Right, a little more on India at the helm this time, Geeta. It is a proud moment for India, and as India is also a growing economy and exponentially growing, it appears that India is at a point of leverage to carry forward at the helm.
Well, if you're talking about the presidency, it is one that it is India's turn to take over presidency of the G20. But India is also now at a place, in a position where it can leverage its not just its position but also its standing, and that's what India is doing. Not just with regards to the Russia-Ukraine war, but also look at the significant statements that Prime Minister made in the first working session. Prime Minister Modi stressed and emphasized on one aspect, and that has to do with while there should be peace and negotiation, while nobody should be supporting any kind of war, he also said that no country should lay restrictions on any country when it comes to energy. There can be no certainty and security on energy and food unless and until we have countries not laying caps and restrictions. And this certainly was a messaging to the West. Prime Minister Modi made that very clear and emphatic. So while every country, whether it's the G20 or beyond, Nabila, are looking at their own national interest, they should also look at how to bring about stability, and restrictions certainly are not the way to go. Very important, another point that he made, which will be a resounding a theme through and through 2023 of India's presidency, is inclusivity. Very clearly saying that countries that are from least developed nations, developing nations, have to be more represented, and is the reason why there is a need for UN reforms. And United Nations, particularly the United Nations Security Council, is not representative of the new and the changed world order. In order to do that, there needs to be UN reforms. Having said that, G20 vis-a-vis all other blocs and groupings, particularly Group of Seven, which is a grouping of the developed nations, are certainly not representative. And countries like Indonesia and India have been talking about how G20 really brings out the real picture in many ways than one of how the new world order looks. And India is at the high table, not just at the high table. Now India has taken over presidency, so we will be looking at a lot of conversations, discussions and decisions, taking others along. No country should be left behind was the message of Indonesia, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi taking forward that very same message, saying inclusivity is key.
All right. All right, Geeta Mohan, thank you very much for joining us.